I am Betty Purkey. I am retired. I've been retired 14 years. A little bit about my parents. My parents met at church, and neither of my parents were able to go to school and finish. My dad, I think, had a third grade education. I think my mother finished the 8th grade. And my dad was a carpenter. My mother was a housewife. And my mother worked in what I call a stock mill before my parents married. And my dad was a farmer when my parents married. I had 4 siblings. I was the oldest. So when the younger ones came along, I did a lot of babysitting, taking care of especially my sister was next, then I had 3 brothers. So I took care of my brothers, and since I was the oldest, I had to learn to work in the garden and on the farm. So I early on learned how to work in the field, and I had a strong work ethic because I had to help take care of my family and work, as I indicated, in the garden, and we grew tobacco, and I had to work in the tobacco field. A childhood memory of my siblings, we lived on a creek. We had 14 acres, and a creek ran through our property, and we played in the creek. And our cousins from town would come out to visit, and we would have fun because they didn't understand a lot about the creek, and we would throw rocks in, and we'd tell them to get on the other side, and we'd throw rocks in and splash them with the water in the creek. I was born in Hamilton County, which was, Morristown was a city, but we lived in the country. Now it's a city, but we lived in the country. And I grew up, we rode the school bus to school. My first 6 years, I guess it was probably 12 years that we were in a school that had no running water or no electricity. And so we rode the school bus, and then they built a new school, and we went to Fairview Marguerite, which was a school it was a new school, and it was a new experience for us. And after I finished high school, I wanted to go to college. I thought I wanted to be a history teacher. But my father said he couldn't send all 5 of us to college, so he couldn't send me, and I went to work. And I worked at the 5 and 10 cent store for 50 cents an hour. And then I was able to get another job that paid a little more money. And then I worked at the office at Berkline, which was a manufacturer of rockers and rocker lounges. I think the world's largest manufacturer. And I worked in the office for 1 year. And then I felt that I was being called to full-time, lifetime service through the church. So I realized that if I was going to do that, I had to go back to school and prepare, which I did. I attended Morristown High School here in Morristown. And then I attended Hiawassee College in Madisonville, Tennessee, which was a United Methodist College. And then I went to Scarrett College in Nashville, Tennessee. And those were very formative years for me because I was able to expand my thinking. I was exposed to a lot of new ideas, which I think broadened my perspective and helped me tremendously in the ministry that I did, because I struggled with my theology during those years. I struggled with I dealt with, I'd grown up in a very prejudiced society, and I began to struggle with how what I had learned wasn't, in my opinion, correct. And it really changed my thinking, and I think it enabled me to be more effective in the ministry which I did. A typical day in my professional life was I was a church and community worker, and my job was to connect the church and the community. And I spent a lot of time working with people who lived on the margins of society, helping them deal with lack of food, lack of medical care, lack of opportunities. And I would work with these families. I spent a lot of time with children, helping them, and working with, I worked with the social agencies where I worked. I partnered with them, and I would help a family get food stamps, or help a family get, I worked with some people who were disabled, helped them to get Social Security disability. I worked with, tried to provide extra opportunities for children to continue learning after school with after school programs, summer programs for children, and I worked with families, helping them get, in one setting, have gardens so they could have extra food in the summer. So a typical day was helping families, but there were a lot of different things I did during that day. Well, when in my retired life, when I retired, I decided I didn't want to just sit around and twiddle my thumbs, so I began to get involved. And before I moved back here, I'd been away 45 years. Before I moved back, someone from the district superintendent of the church, called me and said that there was a project about 38 miles from here in Hancock County, and it was really struggling, and would I be willing to help? So I agreed, and I have, it's called Jubilee Project, and it's in Hancock County. It's one of the two poorest counties in the state. And I began to work with that project. I'm still working with that project. I eventually went on the board of directors, and I'm currently on the board of directors. And then also, the district superintendent asked me if I would help with the senior adult program for the district. And for 12 years, I've been the coordinator of the senior adult program for the district, and have planned activities Every year we have this big, wild and wonderful festival for senior adults. And it's very exciting because people come and they learn and they fellowship, and it's been a wonderful event for me to put together, and we work on it most of the year because it takes a lot of work. And I've done other things for senior adults. And then the other thing I've done has been to work with the Morristown Task Force on Diversity, and I have thoroughly enjoyed that, being a part of that task force and working with the Martin Luther King breakfast and other events. If I could have coffee with any historical figure, there are several, but I think Martin Luther King Jr. would have been the one, because I had such admiration for him and for how he took a stand, knowing that it was costly, and how he led people to take a stand, and how it made a difference in the lives of people who were being who were not recognized, who were put down, who didn't have the rights that they should have. And I would have enjoyed talking to him and asking him questions and talking with him about what a tremendous life he had lived and how he made a difference in the lives of people who didn't have rights. My favorite color is green. I think it says that I think green represents growth and vitality, and I really feel that I associate it with trees, with the leaves, with grass, things that grow. And I always feel that I want to grow, I want to learn more. So green is very important to me. My favorite sports team is the Tennessee Vols football team. I grew up in the day when we had radio, not TV. And I learned by listening to the football games, I learned a lot about the rules, and I can almost guess when there's a penalty what the penalty is. And I get excited. Some of my friends and I watched the football games, and we just got into them and really got excited. And they loved to be with me when I was watching the game, because I'd say, "Get the ball, go!" and run for your life. And we had fun watching those games. My favorite place to visit, I think, would be the Smokies. The Great Smoky Mountains. There's so much to see. I love the mountains. I like the vegetation. I like the mountain, the height of the mountains. And I like the wildlife and the flowers. There are many places I'd like to visit. I went to Australia to a meeting. I loved Australia. But I flew into New Zealand on the way to Australia, and I wanted to stop and see New Zealand. So if I could choose one place I'd like to visit, it would be New Zealand. When I think about Morristown, Tennessee, what comes to my mind is that it's a town that has grown tremendously because of the industry. When I grew up here, it was furniture. Now it's a variety of industries. A lot of it's high-tech, automobile parts. I think about the difference in when I grew up and now, because when I grew up, it was hard to get a job here. And there was the American Inca, that was the main employer, and then the furniture industries. But I think about the people too. I think about how it's changed, and I'm so grateful. I really am grateful that we had Morristown College, and I think it made a tremendous difference for the community in terms of diversity. And now I think the Hispanic population, the Latino population, is about 25% of the community, and I have lived in communities where there's a lot of diversity, and I'm so grateful we're becoming more diverse in the community. And I think that that Morristown is becoming, I hope it's becoming more embracing of diversity. And I think it's a good place to live. We have a lot of people moving in from other areas. And I think Morristown is the people here are trying to work together to make it a better community. So I'm grateful to be able to come back here after being away for 45 years and see the community becoming more embracing of diversity. My favorite thing about Morristown is that I have such wonderful memories of growing up here. And when I grew up, we would come from the country into the city, and I remember Parks Belks was on the corner. It's since been burned down. But they had an elevator. And when I grew up, I loved coming to town and going on the elevator. Then they had elevator operators. You didn't operate it yourself. So I loved to come to town and just see what was in the store and ride the elevator. My least favorite thing about Morristown, I would say, is the fact that I'm not sure why we have so many agencies, and I'm so glad that we have a lot of agencies helping people, but I don't think they're coordinating like they should. And there's still so much poverty in this area and so many needs, and I know they're meeting needs, but I think if they really coordinated and worked together, that there would be more people would benefit from that. I think that the Morristown Task Force on Diversity has done a good job of trying to bring people together across diverse lines, but I think we could do more. And I think for that to happen, we're going to have to do some fundraising because it takes money to have events to bring people together. I'm not sure we're involving the Hispanic community as much as we could. I think that there are other racial ethnic groups here that need to be included. And when you talk about diversity, I think you also need to talk about class. And I think we need to try to involve more people who are in the lower socioeconomic class. And I would hope that we can raise enough money and we can do some visioning about how we could be more involved in bringing together the community as diverse as it is. I envision Morristown in the future being a community that really works together. We have a lot of growth in terms of people coming from other parts of the country. And I don't know that the people who move in here are really that connected to the community. They come in to work. But I think in the future, Morristown needs to really come together more and move forward in terms of being more, we need to do community building, I think. And we also, I think we have to deal with our own infrastructure because we have all these people coming in and people struggle to get doctor's appointments because we don't have enough, apparently enough doctors and healthcare providers. And we need to deal with the traffic situation. We need to upgrade our roads and our traffic and deal with our traffic problems. So those are the things I see as Morristown. My vision would be we deal with the infrastructure and make it more, help our infrastructure meet the needs of the people who live in Morristown and surrounding communities, because there are a lot of people who come in here from other communities and work, and we need to include them more in the community. If I was talking to a child or someone 10 to 20 years from now who's seeing this video, I would say to them, work hard to to know your community and to be involved in your community. You can make a difference. And it's so important that you get involved in your community and work hard to make a difference. You never know who might come up in this community and make a difference in the country and in the world. And it's so important that you get involved in the community.